Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Davis, and you are watching Conversations in Pop Culture. And yes, I am scandalous like an Ashley, and I do want to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by my friends over at Pocket Jack Comics, and they are actually technically in local comic stores near you. And so right now, you could actually go to your local comic shop, and you might see a bunch of really awesome, perhaps sexy covers by my friend Preston Polster. I can't say his name. It's been a long day, everybody. It's been a long day. Um, but yeah, he's got some serious awesome covers in comic shops this month and also technically next month. So definitely go bug your comic shop for those covers. And I do not think you will be disappointed in the covers as well as the story. And you can actually check out their website, pocketjackcomics.com, and sign up for their email list. And once you do that, you will actually get a free PDF copy of their books so you can try it before you buy it so you know exactly what you are in store for. And I do not think, as I stated, you will be disappointed if you're a fan of bad girl art and really, really cool stories, especially female empowerment. So definitely check that stuff out. And again, you can try before you buy it. But enough about that, because I have with me Lance Footer Palmer. And hopefully I got your name correctly. If I didn't, feel free to correct me, but welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited because you got a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, you've done some work for Comics Elite and Power Hour. You've done some work for Zenescope. You've done some work for a bunch of other people. I think Alton Simpson, who I absolutely adore, as well as Merc Mag and a few other people. But before we get into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are? Because you got a lot of different things that you've been involved in, and I don't want to say anything that's crossing a line here.
Oh,
I'm
you can cross the line. Go ahead. You can
I
cross
could
lines.
say it, but it might be offensive the way I'm going to say it. So I'm
No,
going to let you explain.
no. You can say the blind guy's here in the audience, and I got in the studio. But no. Uh, my name's Lance Footer. Originally a Palmer. Um, I was born with low vision, so I am legally blind. I draw everything through this little magnifying glass. So all my art that you see, even the one behind me, was all originally first drawn through a magnifying glass. That's how I create art, and I enjoy it. And there's other things I've done with my life that before I even got back to doing this. So I don't know if you want me to talk about that or not.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that because you are an athlete, and I think that the correct term, and feel free to call me out and tell me if I'm wrong, is a para athlete.
Yes,
I think it is.
yes.
Again, I am not an expert in that sector. I work in digital accessibility, so I completely am the guy who makes screen readers works and some other stuff and color coordinating. But yeah, so what was that like? Because I think you've done some cycling. I think you've done some other stuff as well. And so I'm actually fascinated because the Paralympics are fucking awesome. I must say they're awesome, and I think it's the co-creator of Skims with Kim Kardashian is a big supporter of that.
Really?
Oh
Haven't been.
yeah, she's great. She's great. She's like a huge supporter of the
Wow.
Paralympics, and like she was on Shark Tank with like somebody with this, and oh my god, she was like, I'm investing in this company, and like you could see her eyes just lit up.
Wow. Well, para athlete is, you have the Olympics, you have the Special Olympics, and you have the para athletes. You know, Special Olympics is people that like Down syndrome and things like that that could never probably ride a bicycle or do different things. But I competed in cycling because I was probably 320 easy, probably weighed 320. Um, Alcoholic, addicted, um, depressed, and I was borderline diabetic. And I was like, let me get back on the bike and start riding. And I went to the local bicycle shop because that's what I used to do when I was a kid because I would get bullied because when I was a kid, they didn't know how to, you know, what to do with my vision. So I got these giant books. I mean, like a vocabulary book that would have been, the size of 3x5. Mine was 3 feet by 5 feet. They were just huge. Everything was huge. I could barely fit in my backpack. And I'd ride my bicycle to school, my little BMX bike to school. But I literally was, living here, and I waited till my daughter was 18. And I said, let me get back on a bike. So I went to the local bike shop and I rode the bicycle all the way home. And that was probably 45 miles. And the people that owned the bike shop came by. I guess they lived that way. And they're yelling out the window. They're like, I can't believe you're riding home. And I'm like, I'm riding it home. And then every day spent riding and riding and riding. I'd walk to the bottom of the hill. I'd put my sneakers in the mailbox. I'd put my cycling shoes on and I'd just take off. And I'd be gone all day. And it came to a point where there was a race here in Greenville, South Carolina. And I saw the para athletes for the first time. And they were like hand cycles and tandems and, people with one arm and no legs and with, prosthetics. And I'm like, I wonder if I can do that. And somebody goes, you need to talk to the guy that drives the BMC bus. And I'm thinking BMC bus, that's George Hincapie's bus, right? Because he lives here local. And he was on that team at the time. And I go to the bus, and there's an older gentleman in the driver's seat, and I told him, and next thing I know, I was at a camp at Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. And that led from one camp to another camp to living out there for a little while to living at the Olympic Training Center in Chula Vista, which is outside of San Diego in California. And I went from this big, heavy-set guy to racing for Team USA before it was all said and done. And I literally hold 3 national championships in the United States. So I'm the fastest guy in 2013 for road and track, and then 14 was track. So I was 9th in the world, and I was a contender for Rio Olympics. So that's my cycling career in a nutshell.
So, what is this like? Because obviously, I mean, it's a feat to go from 320 pounds down to a much, I would imagine, healthier weight. I mean, I'm trying to be as civil as I possibly can be. So it's a feat in that, and then also to have all of those accomplishments, where to be ranked number 9 in the world, to go from camp to camp, to be on Team USA, to actually be representing, America in this
exactly.
And then, to be like, hey, I'm going to make something of my life. I mean, I hate to say it that way and to make it hyperbolic, but you could easily said, I am legally blind and my life sucks.
Yeah, I did. That's why I got so big. Yeah, I did. That's why I fell down that rabbit hole, And now my jerseys are actually hang up downstairs with my gold medals and my bronze medals on the wall down there. And I always want to take them down. My wife's like, nope, that shows what you've done. You know how many people can say something like that? And there's especially with a disability, which I call an inconvenience. And I've tried karate. I had enjoyed karate, and that was amazing because my sensei had to reteach the class. And one of the times he shut all the lights off and everybody's like, it's too dark in here. And I'm like, welcome to my world. I tried golf.
It's funny that you mentioned karate, because obviously I have a physical disability. I had a surgery that made it worse. I had a corrective surgery that made it better, but I'm not ready to go back to karate anytime soon. And I don't know how that looks. Need to figure out a new way how to do it. But I had a sensei, or a kyoshi, as it was called in my school, who I think was 6th degree. And he's like teaching me all this messed up stuff that, Andrew, you're not going to make it in a fight the same way as everybody else is. Wow. So he's teaching me all this weird stuff on how to mess up people so that would save my life. And it's so interesting because looking back, it's kind of like sometimes people get it. And sometimes people are like, oh, now I understand that you have to do something very differently than somebody else does.
Right. and it's just a different way of putting it. I mean, that's just like, I have peripheral, but it's still not great. So like if you see me at a show and I don't have my dog or my cane, I'm walking like this because I'm trying to use this to see with, and it's by the time if I don't have my cane at the show, I come home, I can't move my neck for like 3 days, because I've tried to use that and I've run into people and everything else, but like, sorry, at a show, it really doesn't matter. Con and nobody really cares. Hey man, you bumped into me, whatever. Yeah.
Can you hear? Because in college, I had a blind bathmate, and my blind bathmate explained to me one day that I could hear you all the way from like the front door
Yeah.
of like down the hallway. And
Yeah.
I was like, I'm sorry, because me and my friend are just joking, making really messed up jokes, just about society, and he could hear me and my friend talking and walking in a certain way. He's like, I recognize your gait pattern. I'm like, I'm sorry, Vincent. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. And
Well,
he's like, oh no, dude, it's all right.
yeah.
But like he's hearing me and my friend Gabe talking about horrible things and just making and trying to make the most offensive jokes we possibly can make. And he's hearing us from like a mile out. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. I usually have headphones in or earplugs at shows because it's so loud. Because I can't see, I can't smell, and I can't taste. So my hearing and touch is just outlandish, I usually have earplugs in at shows because it's deafening. And we can be at a restaurant. My buddy was talking to me today on the phone, and I'm like, "You still haven't got that leg discrepancy fixed?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I can hear your footsteps and how uneven they are. I told you that like 10 years ago." And he's like, "You can hear that?" I'm like, "Yes, I can hear that." It's like, dude, I'm on the phone with you. Yeah, it is.
So it's so interesting. So I do want to transition out of this into art because obviously I think you're doing art before all this, and
Yeah.
then you were doing this, and then you've now come back into the world of art. I guess sequentials might be a good word to use. Covers, doing
Covers.
other things in it. And so how did that even come about? Because what is that like? Because going from cycling to art is a very big jump. Very
Yes.
big. It's athletics is over here and cycling is over here. And
Well,
those who can't see, I basically extended my arms across the screen
okay.
outside.
Yeah. But yeah, that's funny. But yeah, the art thing, I was basically an art prodigy in school. So my portfolio won the top 10 in New England in 1984. And so the top 10 in New England, I got all this stuff, honorable mentions and gold keys and all this stuff down in downtown Boston. And, I left school because I was in art college at Boston Museum of Fine Arts when I was 11th grade. And every Saturday we were taking the train all the way down to Boston to go to school. And I was like, whatever, and it was neat. It was fun. Um, but then, I got out of school and messed around for a little while. And then I did t-shirt design for t-shirts. So I had t-shirts from basically Massachusetts to California. And then when Desert Storm broke out, I had t-shirts from Desert Storm in Iraq and Kuwait on soldiers because their parents were doing special little things for each soldier and they were sending them back to their sons and daughters. So I had t-shirts in Iraq and Kuwait, and they put me in the newspaper as staff. And I'm like, is that all I am, as staff? I was the only artist. They're like, yeah, well, basically. And I said, I cleaned all my stuff and never drew again for anybody besides myself. And every time I try to get away from this whole art career, it would seem like somebody would be like, hey, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? And I'm like, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. And then when I got into cycling, I met pro cyclists. And, everybody says, well, you draw digitally and you airbrush digitally. And it's like, well, you probably can't airbrush outside of the digital realm. And I'm like, my helmets that I painted for the pro cyclists were on Wild World of Sports in the Olympics. So I think I can airbrush, and I think I got that cred too. because so many people like, you don't put in your dues. You got to put in your dues. I'm like, dude, I've been putting in my dues since 1984 and before.
Let's actually talk
You know?
about this because I don't know, and we might be going into some controversial territory. I've never come across this, but I've heard stories where somebody's very much a digital artist, and then they're willing to do commissions at a con, and they're like, how do I do a commission at a con?
Yeah.
Because they're so accustomed to drawing on an iPad
Yeah.
or drawing digitally that they forgot the fundamentals.
And that's, most people do that. Most people, it's easier to draw it on an iPad, because a lot of people, will take a photo of something else, lower the opacity, and trace over it. Now you've already got your artwork done. Because I had a little young man at the con going, why are you drawing with a pencil? And I'm like, because I have an original. And he's like, well, I've got an original too. And I'm like, where? And he's like, on my iPad. And I'm like, so you're going to sell your iPad when this is all said and done? He said, but it's an original. I'm like, no, it's not. An original is on paper and pens, paper. He's like, we had a big argument about all that.
I mean, it raises questions because I'm an NFT guy and I'm a crypto guy, and
Right.
I do think that you can have original or one-of-ones. I do think that can be done, but at the same time, what is considered to be a one-of-one or an original or a 5 of 5? Because if somebody creates something digital, but they put it into an NFT and there's only one of them out there, and then it's never going to be reproduced, technically it
Right.
can be a one-of-one.
It could be a one-on-one, but what happens if somebody gets that guy's hard drive, or it's on a zip file, and then they're like, oh, let's print these off?
That is true. That is true.
It's no longer a one-on-one, but somebody could always take my original artwork and ink and color over it too. And now it's somebody else's.
That is true as well. But I guess my point is that what is that like for you? Because I do think it's a problem right now in comics with a lot of digital artists.
It is.
And this is how I feel, is that you need to know how to draw on paper.
Yes.
I'm not an artist. I don't need to know how to draw on paper.
I have a lot of people that come up and like, I can't even draw a stick man, and you're drawing with a magnifying glass. And I'm like, well, all you can draw is a stick man. And me and Mike DeBuffo had this conversation because he didn't know I was blind. And I went over there and I'm like, I draw with this little magnifying glass. He says, you're fucking shitting me. I'm like, no. He said, I'm done. I quit. He said, you're putting out that kind of work through that little tiny magnifying glass? And I'm like, yeah, okay, you're going to quit. No way. You're Mike DeBuffo. But, it's crazy how people can't draw. And I had a guy say, well, all I can draw is a stick guy. So he slid up. I said, here's a piece of paper. Draw me a stick person. So he drew me a stick person. I finished fleshing it out. I threw some clothes on it. And I'm like, here, that's what I do. And then I like going to the shows that, when my buddy walks by, he'll be like, oh, this guy, look at this guy. I know him. And I'm like, oh, you do? And he's like, yeah, look at all the stuff he does. And I said, how come he's not drawing? And you ask him, and it's like, I don't draw at shows. So, because you don't draw at all.
I've had a conversation with Greg Watson about this. Greg used to do a lot of stuff at shows and used to do commissions. And he said, I stopped doing commissions at shows because I want to interact with fans.
Right.
Because I don't want to be an artist looking down on my paper all the time. I actually want to interact with fans and have conversations with fans. And I want to sign stuff. And so versus, I'm going to throw out another name who I like a lot, Elias Chatsudis. Yes. I don't know if I've never seen him work on a commission at his table, but he might be staying up all night at a con to do a commission.
Yeah, I saw him drawing at MegaCon. So yeah, he draws at shows.
I love Elias. I have a commission from him worth the $275 all day. It's like Zenescope liked it, and I'm at their booth, and they don't even know it's my commission. And they're showing me this. Oh, dude, did you see this thing? I know, guys. It's mine. Very funny conversation, by the way. They didn't know who I was at that point as an interviewer. But they're like, yo, did you just see this thing that Elias Chatsudis did? And I'm like, yeah. I just put that to CGC like 2 hours ago. And I'm like, oh. Very, very, very funny conversation.
So Jason from Zenescope?
I do know Jason. I know Chris Sampson. I've interviewed Ralph and Joe. I've interviewed Keith Garvey. I've interviewed Sun Kumanaki, technically her first interview. Pat Chan's been on my show a bunch. So I have a very good relationship with
Yeah,
Zenescope.
I was at Heroes Con probably, but I think back in 17 when I first started drawing their sketchbook covers, and I was working until like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, why am I getting all this work? And all these other artists that were down the road from me weren't doing anything. And I went back over there to Jason and Jason and Ken, and I said, hey, I need some more sketchbook covers. And here you go, Lance. Here you go. And I'm like, why are so many? I don't understand. He said, you're busy, and I'm like, yeah, I'm busy. He's like, we're sending people over your table, and I'm like, why? And they're like, you're one of our artists, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, but I've never done a published cover. And he said, do you know how many VIP sketchbook covers you've done? And I'm like, yeah, a lot. And he goes, well, that's why we're sending people to you. You're one of our artists. And I'm like, this is cool, you know.
So let's actually talk about that too, because obviously, I mean, you moved from cycling, doing a lot of airbrush stuff, into comics and doing a lot of cover work, sketchbook cover work. And so, like, how did that even come about? Because you've done a bunch of stuff for Zenescope, but I'm gonna show a bunch of them. I'm gonna do my best to describe it, because I'm probably gonna fail. But you've done a bunch of, I guess, cover works, commissions, sketchbook covers. I don't know what they're called anymore. Everybody has terms now. That I left the industry and I took a 6-week break, and I feel like everything changed in those 6 weeks. So I take time off after Thanksgiving. I take about 5 weeks off in December, because I'm like, I just want a break.
Yeah.
I do 11 months of interviewing, and then I take a 5-week vacation. And in those 5 weeks last year, everything changed.
Wow.
Like, all these terms. Like, people used to just be like, it's a regular edition, a foil, a metal, and everybody's calling them papers. And I'm like, when the hell did that happen? Like,
exactly.
I left 5 weeks, guys. It's like,
I just draw girls. That's all I say. If you see me drawing a guy, I probably hit my head.
no, if it's a metal, I call it a metal. If it's a foil, I call it a foil. It's like, if it's a lava foil, I call it a lava foil. Like, when the hell did we start, like, labeling everything? As it's whatever. My point is that, like, I call, like, sketch covers blank covers. That's all I call them.
Yeah.
They're blank covers to me, because and, like, I don't call it a sketchbook cover. I call it a blank cover that's meant to get sketched on or get a picture drawn on it. It's a blank cover because it's a white piece of paper on the book instead of a regular cover. It's like,
exactly. Yeah.
But I digress. This is not about me. It's not about me.
Oh God.
With comics. This is tomorrow, and actually no, tomorrow night is March Madness, so it's technically not tomorrow night. But I digress here. But what is that like? Because how did you get into that? Because that's what I want to know the most.
During cycling, I was still drawing, and I was training 6 to 8 hours a day, basically. And my coach would literally say, I'm like, I'm not riding today. It's raining. It's cold. It's too windy. He'd be like, just go draw. So that was my escape from training so much, was drawing. And then I came home from, let's see, 10 years. It'll be 10 years ago this year. I came home in 2014 after winning my last national championship, and I went to a show, and I brought my portfolio instead of, being an attendee. And I'm walking around, I'm showing people my portfolio, and they're like, dude, why aren't you here? Why aren't you here? So after that, I just started going to shows and selling artwork. And it's been a dog eat dog world, and I have milk bone underwear.
So to even go further into that, how did you get connected with Zenescope? Because I have a good relationship with Zenescope. And how did you get connected with them? Because you've done a bunch of work for them, and they're an interesting company that's been around for about 17, 18 years now.
I just submitted artwork to them and kept saying, is there anything I can do? Is there anything I can do? Anything I can do? And I guess finally they just said, hey, can you draw a blank cover? And I'm like, sure. And they went, well, we'll send you one and see if you can get it done because we know you have a vision problem, right? And I'm like, okay. So they sent one, and I sent it right back to them about 2 days later, and I'm like, here you go. And they're like, oh my God, that was fast. And they're like, can we send you some more? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then they would always send extras so that, even if I wasn't getting a lot of money, I was getting extra books so that I could make more money with my other ones. So it turned into, well, here's 3, I send those back. Here's 5, send those back. Here's 10. I'm like, okay, now this is starting to be a job. But that's how I got into them. I just guess I pestered them enough.
Let me ask this then: were those sketch covers included in some of those holiday boxes?
Yes, they were in VIP boxes. I actually doing artwork now for a gentleman that has one of the original ones that I did, like the first one I did of a witch. That used to be one of my banners. He has that book and he goes, is this you? Because I never signed my last name. And I'm like, yeah, that's one of the first covers I did for Zenescope. And he said, I found it on eBay and I loved it and I bought it and I never knew who the person was because it wasn't signature series, so it didn't have my last name. And then he started buying books from me. I could send him a message now and he'd be like, do you have time to do 2 or 3 books? And I'd be like, yeah, sure. But I literally sent him the original concept artwork for that sketchbook, for the blank sketch. I literally sent him as a gift one time. I'm like, here, I'm going to send this to you. I said, I'm going to send you a gift. And he's like, you're going to send me a gift? And I'm like, yeah. And I send it to him. He goes, oh my God, you're so nice. No one's ever done that for me before. I'm like, hey, you got the original blank sketchbook cover. You might as well have the original concept sketch.
That's so interesting because I wasn't a big holiday box fan of all the blank covers because I don't know, like it's an expensive box. It really is.
Right.
It's I think like a $400 box, and I'm just like, I don't feel like dropping 400 with Zenescope right now.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. It's tricky. It's a tricky situation. Also $400 is a lot of money.
Right.
But I digress. But I do like the original stuff that they put out there because I know they do a lot of original sketch cards and a lot of their packs now with artists too. And so I have one of those, and I think it's interesting. But to even show some of this, because I don't know how well you can see, but this is your Van Helsing that you did.
Yeah.
The one that has like the white moon and the red, and we're holding the gun and a red corset, and I'm not doing a good job describing it. But I know your signature's on it. I think this was a cover though. I think this was a cover.
No, it's just something I did. It's just something in my portfolio. Yeah.
So I know you did that one, and then I know that you did this one too. That I think also was just the Dorothy, where her tatas are being covered by her braids and her bows.
I did that right before MegaCon on a blank sketch, and the blank sketch. That's how I met Comics Elite. Is they came over to my table and they bought that.
Please stop ruining things for me. Please stop. You can continue. I'm sorry. I'm just teasing. Yeah, so that's your Dorothy, but we might as well talk about Comics Elite because I like Comics Elite. They made me a lot of money. They'll probably make me a lot more money. I think that they got a lot of stuff going on right now. I mean, they just bought Double Impact,
right?
So I like Comics Elite. So how did that even happen? Because
it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy because I was sitting there Thursday with me and my wife and my dog, and I was sitting there Thursday, and I'm like, wow, we're not selling anything. And then Friday, it was just like we sold some things, and I'm just like, man, this was a heck of an investment to come all the way down here to Florida, and hotel room and car rental, and I'm just like, and Saturday came, and the bumper to bumper people, and then everything picked up Saturday, and I was just like, wow, Saturday's the day, and Sam and Ernie were over at Ryan Kincaid's table, and Sam turned around and saw my Velma banner, which my Velma banner is one of my pinup friends, Christy Leone from the UK. and she's one of my pinup models. And she literally had me redraw her as Velma. Well, was Velma for Halloween, and I was like, I gotta draw that. And she's like, of course you can. And so then I made the gravestone and like two hands coming out of the ground holding Velma's legs. But Sam saw Velma's butt on the banner, and he goes, "We got to go over there next." And they came over to me, and I was over there drawing, and my wife was interacting with people, and they're like, "Dude, why you use that magnifying glass?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm blind." And they're like, "You're shitting me." And I'm like, "No, I'm not shitting." I'm like, I held up my card. I'm like, "It says Low Vision Studios." I said, "Because I got low vision." And they're like, "Can you see me?" And they went back and forth, and like, "You did all this?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "How much do you want for it?" We're from Comics Elite. I didn't know who Comics Elite was, you know. And next thing you know, they bought $500 worth of stuff, and they're like, "We're gonna put this on the live show tonight." So I had two commissions to do. So I was in the hotel room the next day, and I'm doing my commissions that night, right? And I'm still in the twilight of the little lamp in the hotel room, drawing, right? And my son-in-law is sending me messages, and he's like, "Brother," he's like, "Dude," he's like, "That sold already. That sold already. This just sold. That sold. This sold. That sold." And they're like, "Lance has got an eye problem. You need to check out his work. This is his website, And my shit just went like that. Everything they bought, I think it sold in like under 10 minutes. It was incredible. And they're like, "Lance, we'll see you again tomorrow." And sure as anything came back, Sunday came around. They came back by Sunday, and they're like, "We want you to come over here and meet Sean." And I'm like, "Okay, who's Sean?" And I went over and I met Sean. He's like, "He's the owner of Comics Elite." And I'm like, "Okay." And Sean's like, "Dude, I love your stuff." He's like, "This is amazing." And, because I also made him money. I made Comics Elite money. I made money. They made money. And it wasn't that long after that they said, during the shows, they were saying, you see the original artwork that, they bought prelims like this. So they bought prelims like this, right? And they're like, "Hey, you could get this prelim because it might be a cover soon from Lance." And about a week later, 2 weeks after MegaCon, I sent Sean a message, and we got back together, and I was talking to Ernie and Sam, and next thing I know, Vicky said, "Sean wants you to do some covers." And I'm like, "Okay, sounds great. When do you need them done by?" "Whenever you get them done." I got 3 covers for Power Hour done in 3 weeks. So naughty versions and nice versions. And they're like, "This is incredible." And I'm like, "This is my job. This is what I do." Right.
That's
So
wild.
there might be, I'll just say, there's going to probably most likely be a May 4th cover also. So,
That's
you know,
crazy.
and
So
then I was working with Clan McDonald. Do you know Clan McDonald?
I know there, yeah.
I was working with Clan McDonald last year. He had me do sketchbook blanks for him, for his company. And, that was only supposed to start out with, "Hey, he put a post up, and he's like, let's just have Lance do 10. Well, it turned out I did 28. And 2 of them were for Clan himself, but I did 28. One of them was Bill. I can't think of his name, but anyway, I was scared to draw on it, but and then it wasn't probably 2 weeks ago that Clan said, "Do you want to do an exclusive?" So I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So I'm doing an
So
exclusive for Clan.
this is so interesting because I mean, this is the direction we're going in. I mean, I could tell you as my eBay business, this is the direction I'm going in anyway. And so I find it so interesting because it is, I mean, the way I view it is that I am very good at stock investing. And I think what's happened is that stock investing and investing in general has changed where now you're not looking necessarily for growth. You're looking for stocks that are under what is called fair value.
Right.
So there's been a shift, in my opinion, in investing where you're now not looking for what's the potential of a company, but if a stock is trading under its quote unquote fair value. And the reason how this relates back to art is that I think you're looking now for artists who are trading under fair value. Not saying that J. Scott Campbell isn't worth his money, because
Right.
J. Scott Campbell is J. Scott Campbell, but there gets a point where there are artists who were under fair value that got maximized, and a bunch of covers have been done, and now they are either at fair value or they're above fair value. And it could very well be that you're in that spot right now where you are a brand new artist, or not, maybe not brand new artist, but an artist who's now been discovered, who is
Yes.
under fair value.
Yes.
And it's so interesting because I think that's where comics are going. And
Yes.
maybe it's because I have an investor mindset, but
Right.
that's what I think has kind of happened to you in a lot of ways. And I think it's so interesting because you're probably going to get a lot bigger in the next year or two.
Oh, I hope so. And that's the ultimate goal. But I mean, like Sam and Ernie were like, dude, where have you been? And I'm like, this is the first time I've ever done a major show. And look what, and I walked away and I looked at my wife and I said, look what's happened in this past month. I've done 5 covers.
Too. Let's actually talk about that too, because again, I've been interviewing for 10 years. And every once in a while I get a big interview, but I think what's starting to happen is that, and I think it's very similar to you, is that I also think that maybe options have been exhausted on quote unquote the old guard.
Yes.
And there's this shift where a new guard is coming in across every sector.
Yep.
And so when people say, hey, where have you been? It's kind of like, I've been here all along.
Yeah.
Maybe you, the looker, or you, the consumer, or you, the person, has been betting on the 8 horses that are the stable, and now there's the other 8 who have been here all along, and you realize the 8 horses you've been looking at aren't the future. So do you think it's that, or do you think it's just the idea that accessibility or access, or just people just sort of stating, hey, I'm looking for the next thing? Because I'm curious about that, because
I think it's about looking for the next person that's coming up through. That could be the next Campbell, or it could be the next, whoever. But I think that's what it is. And I've always been the underdog anyway. So, it's like, I always hear you got to put your dues in. And I've been putting the dues in since I was in 1984 and before. You know what I mean? So I don't understand that, but whatever. But that's what Sam and Ernie were saying on the show. They're like, dude, we can't believe we found him, because how many shows have you done, Lance? And nobody's found you yet. And I'm like, well, this Clans found me, and I got introduced to Bud Root way back when, like probably 5 years ago, and I did Cave Woman covers, but it never really spawned past that. You know what I mean? Because I've got Cave Woman covers.
Did you also feel that we're also in 2024? Where 5 years ago we were in 2019. This was pre-COVID. And I mean, the reason how I exploded from 352 subscribers to almost 600 is because I shifted from going pre-recorded, once a week, to doing
to live
shows a week, live, knowing, and I had an advantage because I was a seasoned interviewer, but I wasn't a live interviewer at that point.
Right.
But I do think that there's been a shift. And I think that it's really interesting where, I just started throwing myself out there. And I mean, there's been a lot of reasons why in the last 2 weeks I've gotten a lot of subscribers, but it's also the idea that I'm just sharing out my content. And I also think that people are sick and tired of drama right now.
Yes.
And I think that people are sick and tired of the same old, where I think that we've seen enough of the top 50 artists right now in comics. We've seen enough of it. I really believe that. And I'm looking for somebody who the hell is this person? I've never seen them before, and this is interesting, and where are we going with it?
Right. And see, that's where I got, I've got people come by my table and they're like, oh, wow, I love your work. And I'm like, thanks. I'm like, I'm blind. They're like, what do you mean you're blind? You're drawing, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, but I have low vision, so I'm drawing through this magnifying glass. And I'm like, you look through this portfolio, and I said, everything's come through this little magnifying glass. And then, then they're just intrigued, and they're like, you do all this through this? And I'm like, yeah, it's just an inconvenience. you know. Like at MegaCon, I met a deaf kid, and he was showing me his phone. He's like, he looked at me and he pounded his chest, and he's like, and he was like, I'm deaf, and I'm like, I went, I can't see, right? So he kept giving me his phone so that I could read his large print on his tag. And I was just like, this is cool as anything. And we just had that friendship, but I think it's with me, I hope I do more work. I love drawing for Sean and them because, I can draw naughty covers and don't have to worry about what anybody thinks. You know what I mean? Because
So let's talk about that too, because I sell a lot of naughty books. I don't know how much you know about what I sell on eBay and what I don't, and when I'm slowly getting onto Whatnot. My Whatnot is not going as well as I would like it to go. I'll be the first to say that, but it could be my price point where I know what my books are worth, everybody. So I'm sorry if you're looking for a dirt cheap deal on some Mount Olympus books. Mount Olympus books, I'll say this: if those were real girls, you definitely want to be on a ship wreckage with them because you will float. I promise you, you will float.
Let me show you my banner. Okay, this is just a print. This is a print of it. This is where it all started, right here, because them guys saw this banner. And I guess they had just put out Jinkies or something. And he turned around and saw Velma. He's like, we're going over there. And I'm like, yeah.
I sell a lot of bad girl books and I've done plenty of things. And I have a very interesting book by Merck. This one right here, everybody. I have all 10 of them. But technically it's an error book because it says 1 in 20, but there's only 10.
Wow.
So this is an interesting book in its own right, but not the point. But I love bad girl art, and I saw a lot of it. But I do think in many ways the reason why it's working, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, is that it is the thing. Not safe for work books are the thing right now. They are really popular. I don't foresee them exiting anytime soon.
No.
And I think there will be an exit. I do. I don't think it's going to last 10 years.
Right.
I think it's on a bull run for about the next 2.5 to 3. I'm very, very, let me put it this way. I wouldn't put real money on that, but I don't foresee it going past 5, this trend. But I do think it's here to stay for a while. Right. So what is that like for you? Because it is popular and they sell, and there's a lot of money to be made in this whole thing.
Well, it is. And, I've, like we talked to, you said you were friends with Alton. I've done work for Alton, and I've always done a naughty and nice cover for Alton, and, I don't know. I've seen it here. I mean, I have the people. I mean, I've had naughty grandmothers look through my, I got a naughty and nice Big Bad Wolf behind me, and I had grandmas buying my artwork. I have more girls buy my artwork than guys, which is crazy to me, but I hope it keeps lasting. But there's still a point where I think the artists will probably get wore out doing it than anything else. But to me, it's just like I'm happy drawing what I love, and I'm doing my job. I'm doing what I love to do, and I can't complain that I can sit at home and draw all day.
Let's actually talk about this too, because obviously you're doing sketch covers or blank covers. Right. That is it in many ways. Either Zenescope's reaching out to you to put them in some boxes or VIP boxes. Or, obviously somebody comes to you at a con and you're doing a commission or reaches out to you. That's one thing that happens. But then you've also done stuff where you get hired by Comics Elite for Power Hour, or, Clan McDonald wants an exclusive, or Merc Mag, which is right here. These are some of the Merc Mags.
I didn't get to that. That never made it. But I'm glad you like it. But that never made it. I don't know why.
But you even get the potential to do something for them or get called up or get a tryout. I don't know how. I'm picking my words carefully because
Right.
I like all these companies and I don't want them to come back to me
Well,
again. You can't
well,
buy.
I think if it was a tryout for like Comics Elite, they'd have had me do one. You know, not 4, and possibly 5. You know what I mean? I think if it was a tryout for me, that they would have said, let's just see how one goes. You know what I mean? But it was just like, can you do this? Can you do this? And I'm like, yeah. When can you get it done? And I was told, no one's got them done that fast before. I'm like, well, I've already really drew them on it because whoever bought the blanks got the original artwork. You know what I mean? Because 3 of the covers came from blanks, that I had done that sold.
But also what happens, I think, in comics is that this is how I view it, right? So as an interviewer, I'll be very honest. I don't get many solicitations now, but I also legitly have 400 people on my wait list at any given point. And sometimes I'm like, I don't feel like doing an interview this week either.
Right.
And there's plenty of people that I'm like, I have no desire to interview. and it's because your book doesn't interest me or your product doesn't interest me.
Right.
And I'll be honest, if I could pick between a voice actor and somebody who's just starting their Kickstarter, I'm like, I'm at a stage where I'm like, where do I want to go here? And it sounds like an asshole, and I understand that to people who are watching this, but I am becoming very selective. So it could very well be that if a company like Merck or another company says, hey, submit 5 to us, and then they don't use it, it could be that they have legitimately 40 people to choose from. And it could be nothing personal. It could be the idea that all 40 are great, but some are greater than others.
Right.
Great book, Animal Farm, guys. Great book.
Yeah. Well, I've already seen the print versions of them, so I was excited. I'm like, this is cool as anything,
Even to go further into this, what is this like? Because you've done stuff for Kickstarter. Obviously, I think, what was it, Libertine art book you did some stuff for, and some Bunny Goes to Space.
Werewolves of Brooklyn.
Did you do Witches of Westchester?
Witches of Westchester. Yeah. Vampires in New Jersey. Yeah.
I should have bought the Steph Wilson thing because I'm from Westchester, New York. There's mistakes that have been made in life.
This is a Werewolves of Brooklyn. That was my copy, so I had it graded.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. That's amazing. I should have bought the original art from Steph.
Yeah.
For like $400, and I think it would have been so smart. But live and learn. There's that one. It's funny because I'm from Westchester, New York, and Alt never said, "Oh, there's a lot of Westchester." No. We know it's Westchester, New York, man. We know it's Westchester, New York. Okay, I'm sorry if you're connecting all these. It's not Westchester, Kansas.
Exactly.
I'm sorry. I understand you're trying not to alienate people, man. But we know what it is. But what is that like? Because then you've done stuff for Bad Wolf too, and Zombie Eats Flesh or Bad Donut, and they're also on Kickstarter. But then you got Power Hour. So what is that like? Because I think it's interesting when somebody is playing in direct publishing, but also Kickstarter land, for lack of a better word.
The Kickstarters is strange because I just posted a glimpse of Alton's Bunny Goes to Space 2 cover this evening because I'm like, hey, can I post this? Because with Sean or Clan or most people, they won't let you post even a preview of anything coming out, because it's always supposed to be a surprise. And let's get the audience pumped up. That's not like going to a concert. Here's my theory about this. You go to a concert, you buy your tickets 2 months, 3 months in advance, right? So why not start promoting that 2 or 3 months in advance to get the build up to, okay, here it is, instead of just going, here it is. Like the Kickstarters. Kickstarters the same way. Why don't we start showing the artwork and getting people excited instead of just going, here's the Kickstarter launched. And now they got to go in and they got to look for stuff. That's my theory behind all that is why don't you treat it like a concert? Start showing stuff ahead of time and then bam, here's where you can buy it. You know what I mean? That's my theory. And another thing I wanted to say before everything ends tonight, I appreciate you interviewing me. If you're that picky, I appreciate you being picky with me.
No, I'm extremely picky. I have no problem admitting that. I'm picky because and I'm very selective, and even when I get solicited, it used to be that I get solicited a lot, and I'll be very honest. Year one, I got a lot of solicitations, and I took everybody, and there's shows that take everybody, and this is going to sound really, really bad, but I think it's true. Shows that take everybody get really good guests, but they also get disaster guests.
Wow.
You get the whole thing. I would rather have good or average guests consistently than have a disaster on my hand. And also, I hate to say this, but there are people who use shows and then they never ever return favors. And so when I'm really, really picky, I eliminate quote unquote bad actors.
Yeah.
And there's been people, and I have no problem saying it, and I understand it puts people in a weird position, but you've been on my show 5 times, and then I run a Kickstarter for my show, and you can't even throw me $5 for my Kickstarter or $1.
Yeah.
Like, if all of a sudden I have been doing this for 10 years, and then you've been on my show 5 times and you can't support me, even for $1 or 2 or 10, and you've been on my show 5 times, especially when you were brand new, like there's a problem here, and this is why you have to become selective, because I have to protect my brand, and I have to protect myself, and also make sure that the people who are coming on my show are going to be decent people and are going to be supportive of this. And I have sponsors now too, and so I have to be very well aware that I have sponsors and I have other sponsors, and I cut up micro content. And do I want to make a interview where I can't get any micro content out of that, which then affects monetization on the back end on YouTube? Like this isn't anymore me running something for a hobby. There's a business behind this.
Yep.
And monetization is now on the table, because I think in the next 2 years, I could have a YouTube channel that generates $40-$50 a month.
Right.
So I'm very, very, very protective of this. And it just, and even tabling all that, nobody wants to feel like they're used.
Right.
That's
exactly.
what it comes down to. And it sucks, because would I like to take a lot of people? Sure. It's also the idea, though, that I'm going to wind up with horrible people and some of the greatest people in the world. And I don't want to run the gambit that way.
Right. Yeah. It's hard because people don't realize it's your job. It's just like somebody, if you're calling me through the course of the day, it's just like I can still ink and color. But if you're texting me through the course of the day, now I have to take my magnifier off my paper, and I'm now looking at my phone, and it's like, this is my job. You're calling me at work. I don't call you at work. You know what I mean? Yeah. But people don't, I get the same thing. I mean, I have so many fans and so many people, and then we ran a Kickstarter for a calendar last year. And if it wasn't for one of my friends giving extra money, the calendar Kickstarter wouldn't even have made it, And I'm just like, y'all asked me for a calendar. I put out a calendar, and no one bought one. I only had like 4 people buy one. And I'm like, why did you ask me to put out a calendar then? Put out an art book, Lance. Put out an art book. I'm like, how many of y'all going to buy the art book?
Again, if I don't want to interview somebody, I will quote them a price.
Yeah.
And people are going to get really offended by that. And my response is that you've been on my show 5 times. You've never invited me on yours. This is what it's going to cost.
Wow.
And that's that. And I understand if you can't afford it, but you got to look at it from my angle.
Yeah.
If you were a team player back in the day, we would not be having this conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what it comes down to. If you treated me appropriately from day one, or you reciprocated with me, we would have done business, because I'm a strong believer that people make money together. They don't make money in opposition.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah,
made a
agreed.
lot of money with a lot of people in my life, and a lot of people have gotten really not super wealthy, but the way it should work is that if I'm buying from you wholesale, you should make money and I should make money.
Right.
Only
Right.
you make money. I'm not coming back to you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how I feel. But I digress. But again, it's a very controversial position, and I understand that people aren't happy with that statement of mine, and I'm okay with it because it is what it is.
It is what it is.
I
Yeah.
gotta
You gotta
eat.
do what you guys. You gotta do you, boo.
I need to eat too because to run my show is 240 a year,
Yeah.
and even if I get close to that, my objective in a lot of years is 120. I'm fully sponsored for this year. So I'm not worried about that, but it's still not free. It's
Right.
not free. And so unless you're being a team player with me, and it gets worse too, man. I mean, there are people who are spending $1,200 for Kickstarter services and they can't even throw me $5. And
That's
my
crazy.
response back to all those people is that I'm sorry you're using creative services. I expect to be treated the same way or do not respect me.
Wow.
And let's just, and if somebody says, I don't respect you, Andrew, I can say, thank you for letting me know. But since you don't respect me, I can't have it on my show. But I respect
Exactly.
the fact that you don't respect me so much that I don't think my show can host you, but I have the utmost respect for you. There's going to be like 20 respects in the sentence.
That's funny.
Just to prove the point, everybody.
Just to prove a point. Yeah. I understand that.
I,
It's like, that's like me thinking getting, the cold shoulder from local artists because, I had left Team USA, I left Top Podium and now I'm back to doing this. And, I got the cold shoulder and it's just like, hey, can you help? Can you support me? And it's just like, no, no, I didn't fit in with the cool kids. I probably will never fit in with the cool kids because I've always been an underdog.
so let me ask you this because I am curious because the way I feel about Kickstarter right now is weird because I feel like there's a begging group, there's a group that really needs support, and then there's a group that's just there because it's the low hanging fruit to get a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I feel that there gets a point that a lot of artists and a lot of people are just begging for money.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you feel about it, but I've obviously backed out of Kickstarter and backed in a lot of projects because I
Wow.
think that it's gotten a little out of hand. And I think that there's a lot of, I wouldn't say bad actors, but I think it's problematic.
Yeah. It's, you don't, and it's weird because, like if you got certain people that you see their Kickstarter, and then there's certain people that you got to go find their Kickstarter because it's not getting the same traffic to it. You know what I mean? And it's just like, I didn't even know you had a Kickstarter. And it's just like, and it's getting shuffled down or it's getting hidden. And, Facebook's hiding it. And, I got a friend, he goes, I didn't even make my Kickstarter, that I had for, a month ago. And I'm like, how didn't you make it? And he goes, no one saw it. But everybody saw the other one that made, $850,000, you know, and
So
this person's probably had 20 Kickstarters, you know.
do you think that because I mean I have a theory about Kickstarters and people are having a hard time funding as fast as they are. I think a lot of money and a lot of money was cheaper come at the start of COVID. But I think
Right.
pre-COVID it was tougher. I think during COVID those 2 years was a lot easier because money was cheaper. There
Yes.
was helicopter money, college debt, student loan debt was suspended, meaning
Yeah.
that you didn't owe anything, so you could just accumulate that debt. Or if you were making payments every other month, it didn't increase your balance because the interest rate was zero. And then fast forward, it's now gotten back up where now you're getting charged interest, so there's less money if you're
Yeah.
a young person. I think that's an issue. I think that inflation has been, destructive and it's not leaving anytime soon, if ever
Yeah.
again. I mean,
Exactly.
I don't think inflation is, leaving. I think certain things obviously have come down, but also people are looking to buy a house in the next year and a half. I'm looking to buy a house. So obviously my comic expenditure is going to change,
Right.
and my pop culture and my collectability is going to change. I'm probably going to be making exits out of this space, to be
Right.
honest. I have money for partially a down payment, but I don't have a lot of money at the moment. But I got to sell a lot of comics. I
Right.
mean, I'm sitting on a lot of books that need to be sold that are going into a house fund.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that all plays a factor in it. And in COVID, I mean, I wasn't going into my job, 4 days a week or 5 days a week. I was paying for
Yeah.
gas. So I think
Exactly.
there's a lot of that's why I think people are still funding, but I think they're funding in 2 weeks, not one.
Well, I think they're also being more picky on who they fund because it is money's tighter. Because I've seen it. I mean, during COVID, I was making more money sitting at home, and I'm like, I will never do another show because I was making money at home, you know. And at the show, you got the people that are picky because I mean, like at MegaCon, I had a lady and her a daughter. And they went through they met me and they went through the whole show and came back and bought artwork for me. And I'm just like, wow. She's like, this is what we wanted. This is the thing. I could have bought something else down the road from some famous person. She said, but I wanted something from somebody that had a disability and was fighting over it. And I'm just like, well, that's cool as anything. And I ended up giving her something, because she did that.
Let's
You
actually
know,
talk about that too, because do you know? I mean, I'm curious, and it's okay if you don't know, but I don't know the answer to this. How much is a ticket to go to MegaCon as a fan?
um,
Yeah, I'm not trying to
I
put you on the
think
spot.
it's I know, but it's over $50, I think, a day.
So let's say you go on Saturday and it's going to run you 65. Is that a fair
Right.
assessment?
Yeah,
Or
easy.
for argument's
Yeah.
sake, so I just paid $65 to come into your con
Yeah.
so that I could spend more money.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
ludicrous. It is
It is.
ludicrous
It
by
is.
definition. And this is controversial. That's like saying I'm going shopping at the mall, and the mall's going to charge me $5 to come in so I can spend more money at all the stores.
Well, here's you what the vendors and the artists and everybody put up with, okay? We had to pay to park, okay? So not only do we have to pay it was 450 I think this year for a table. It's 525 next year for a table. We also had to pay over 30 something dollars a day to park. So 4 days, 30, 60, that's $120. So right off the get go, you're almost into parking and a table alone, $600.
That's the business side of it. But if I'm just a consumer and I
You still
just
got to pay to park too when you walk through
so
the
so
door.
so so, so let's say that I got a kid and me, right? And
Yeah,
so let's say I'm paying to park, and then both badges cost, 120.
right.
So 150. I just spent $150. And let's say I don't buy anything at the con. That's
Yeah,
$150 a day. But then at a convention like MegaCon, I think in order to have a really good time, you need $200 to $400 minimum.
yeah,
So this is where this gets really tricky, and this is where I think the Comic Con position is messed up. I really think that these cons are messed up, where I
yeah.
actually think that they're screwing their artists
Oh
because you
yeah,
guys are paying to vend, which to some degree makes sense, but then I'm paying to buy from you.
yeah,
So all of a sudden, it's like, you know, I get that you're getting the right to sell to me, but if I'm already 65 in the hole, I mean
yeah.
that affects a lot of business, and I just think the whole concept's ludicrous.
I do
I
too.
think on tickets should be like 30,
Yeah,
and I think that if you want a 4-day pass, it should be like $100 for something like New York Comic Con or MegaCon or San Diego, because don't you want your vendors to do well? And if they need to make
exactly.
access, I mean, I'll be honest, I think it should fall on you guys. I don't think it should fall on the consumer, because I want to buy from you, But if I'm
Yep.
already getting hit with $65, $80 for a ticket, that cuts into my budget.
Yep. And that's why I always hear, I said, you hear people later, you know, oh, I'm like, hey, you coming to this show? And if it was in Florida, they're like, no, I save all my money through the course of the year for MegaCon. And I'm like, well, I can see why after attending MegaCon, because with hotel, rental car, food, table cost, parking cost, and then gas to get there, and staying in the hotel to and fro because my wife's the only one that drives. We were in MegaCon for $2,400. You know,
I was in the middle of building a comic book investing class, and I've broken down how to do this. So if you do 2 major cons a year, so if you do a MegaCon and an Awesome Con, which is in DC, and I picked 2
right?
events that I know, all of a sudden, and you're a consumer, so you got to look at your ticket costs. And then if both those cons, MegaCon's in February, and then Awesome Con is technically like a month. No, Awesome Con was around MegaCon too. I think it was like a week
Yeah,
later, which
I know.
is terrible. It's just terrible.
Right,
You economically can't do both of those safely.
right.
Yeah, actually you can, but it's tricky. You really need to start in April to do both of those if they're a week apart. Unless you live in DC and you're going down to Florida, or you live in Florida and you're going up to
Right,
DC and it's
right.
a local con for you and you're not paying for a hotel, that's fine. But
Yeah,
again, what I was teaching in my class before I explained my class is that if you have 9 months and you want a grand at these cons and it's a local con and you're not paying for food the same way, the answer is that you have to build a budget and you got to sack money away every
yep,
single month. But
yep,
now, if it's going to run you 2 grand with hotels and everything and travel, and you got 9 months, that bill becomes more expensive.
yep.
And
And
I
see
think,
that.
what were we
Good.
saying?
No, I totally agree with you because like I was going to do Terrificon, and I had to back out because it was going to cost me, it was going to cost me easy $1,900 to do the show with airfare, hotel, Uber, because the Uber, I had to take an Uber from the airport to the hotel. It didn't matter if I went to Providence or I went to Hartford. I still had to have an Uber an hour to the hotel. So that's $200 just in Uber fees. And I'm like, I'll never make that back at the show, and that's where, people don't realize that if an artist and everybody's like, come to Chicago, C2E2, come to San Diego, come here, come there. And I'm like, I
This is
can't.
this
It's
is
not.
why I stopped doing shows and I haven't been to a comedy show. Even as a panelist with a free badge, it is too expensive
Yeah,
me to have a good time. Great, I'm doing a panel. I'm not getting paid for it. I get a free badge, but I'm going to need a minimum of $400 to $500 to have a really good time.
yep,
Or I could take that $400 or $500, buy merch, sell it on eBay, sell it on whatnot, sell it on Facebook, you know, marketplace, and I could turn that 500 into 1250 or
right,
1500, and plus my time, plus my energy, plus not having a day off or something else. And all of a sudden, I run the math, and I'm looking at not $1,500 that I'm losing.
yeah,
I'm losing if I go to a Awesome Con, I go to a Terrific Con, or I go to Connecticut Gaming Con, whatever that is. It's expensive.
yep,
It's like I was looking at that '90s con that was in Hartford, and I was
right,
looking at, even if I got a free badge, I'm looking at this and I'm like, it's expensive,
yep, yep.
and I just can't afford it, and I have to make decisions, and it sucks, and it's
Well,
unfortunate.
that's me. And I mean, I even asked for, I got a manager and he helps me get tables, and he got me a table at Miami, and it wasn't bad for the table was still $400 something, I think, but the airfare was like Southwest, spend all day in the airport, and it was like $600 to fly to Miami and back. And I'm just like, okay, so now I got 600. It's no longer where it used to be near the regular hotels. It's out on the island in Miami. So now you've got all the little rinky-dink, fancy hotels at like $300 a night. I'm like, I can't afford that. I had to cancel. I'm like, I'm not that. I'm not that person that they're gonna send me. Oh well, here's your airfare. I do have people that help me with airfare, promoters that help me with airfare and hotels, and it's a smaller show in Florida that helps me with that stuff. And it's just like, how can this little show help you, but the big show is gonna gouge the shit out of you? I mean, if it wasn't for Comics Elite, I would have never made back. Broke even. You know, I'd have been $1,000 in the hole.
I think it's crazy, and this is my whole thing with this show, is that I don't think people are fully aware of the economics. Or conversely, I'll be very honest, I don't think most of my guests have an idea, or they're struggling themselves with economics. And it's not that I don't think people, maybe they do or they don't understand, but there gets a point where I'm like, I'm helping you make money. How are you helping me?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people in the next year or two are going to really start realizing that with all the free money gone in comics, and there's a reason why somebody asked me, "Hey, could you interview people I'm helping and publishing under my publisher?" And I'm like, "Sure, but what's my compensation?"
Right.
Because we're at that stage now where it's unfortunate. I think that there's a lack of understanding of helping people out. And maybe it's not money. I'll give you a real good example. If somebody said, I can't afford to pay you money, but I could send you 10 of my comics, and,
Right.
great. We're now starting to talk, and maybe you could sell them in your eBay store or you have a whatnot, and I could hook you up with 10 of my variants that I think are going to sell well for you. And if you sell them for $10 a pop, have merch.
Right.
And I just think that there's a problem in that. And I think that unfortunately people are not fully thinking or well aware of how to
Well,
help.
see, that's like me. Like I told you about that guy. That if I needed to sell 3 comic books, he'd be like, "What can you do for me?" Because I give them these prelims. And Comics Elite was selling these prelims for $80. And I treat my customers like, if I send you a comic book, I try to give you something free inside. You know what I mean? If I send you a blank cover that I did artwork on, I try to give you something, because I appreciate the business, and I appreciate loyalty, you know. And I have one guy that probably has 80 of my books, blanks covers that I've drawn on. And it's just like, he's like, "You want to see my collection?" He said, "I only buy from Lance Footer." And I'm like, dude, one day you're going to be sitting back going, "That's 300, that's 400. I'll sell that for 500, And I'm like, I hope you are, you know, I hope you are.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
I never would have thought. And I'm like, oh, so that's where that cover went. There's where that cover went. And then you get people that buy stuff off of eBay. And I'm like, come to me. Don't buy something off eBay. Just come to the artist. Don't, or come to, I had somebody go, "I bought this from so and so." And I'm like, "You did?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Well, how much did you give for it?" And I gave like $600-700. And I'm like, "I'd have sold it to you before that." You know what I mean? And I understand everybody's here to make money, and everybody's here to be happy, but people don't realize there's a reason why they call it a starving artist. I'm not Campbell. I'm not Adams. You know what I mean? I'm not Steranko.
It's whatever. I sell a lot of books, and I like some books that sell out, and I'm well aware that what I carry, and I have no problem. And again, though, I'm fully aware that they're starving artists, and
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm a starving artist, but definitely it took me a long time to get fully sponsored. But I'm not making much money. If I make enough money to buy me a 6-pack a year, that's a lot.
Yeah. I've made bank this March, and I was just like, out of everybody, the books that I got from Comics Elite done, and still got another one to do, and I did Clan McDonald's cover, and I've done probably 8 sketchbook covers, blank covers this month. I've made good money this month, and I think it's just everybody's, oh my God, maybe I should jump on this bandwagon, and I'm like, come on it.
I think what's going to happen with me is that I think it's a slow burn. I think that at some point there will be a tipping point with me, and again, it's just been. But I think I'm years out. I think I'm years out as an interviewer. But I think at some point there is going to be a tipping point, and I think that it's going to break, and it's going to break like a dam breaks. But it's a while out, and I hope I'm right, but it's tough. It is tough because easy come, easy go, and but I'm also a strong believer that if you're in creative, you're a creative. You got to make your money when you can,
Right.
because there is no guarantee. And I'll say something about Scott Snyder. Scott Snyder is making a lot of money with a lot of his books right now and a lot of his options. I think most of his money comes from his options. I could be wrong, but a lot of his books are optioned and they get renewed. But there is going to get a point where there's a bunch of new kids on the block and he will always be able to make money, but his money making years are the next 15 to 20 years. Because I don't think when he's 60 or 65, he's going to be making the money that he made when he was 40.
Right.
Because I think those options are going to be less and less and less valuable as more and more properties become quote unquote sexier to pick up.
Right.
But that's just my thoughts, and I don't think he disagrees. I honestly, if we had a conversation, I don't think he would disagree. I don't. I think his time to make a lot of money and make his millions is in the next 20 years.
Well, he's talking about making your millions. Kevin Eastman was here at our hometown, right? I grew up not far from Kevin Eastman. Same, about the same age. Okay. And I saw him here at town, and what was the most awesome thing, and I don't know if it's his karma or what, but, I stood in his line to get his autograph, and I had my original April O'Neil print. And I had 2 prints. I had another print of the April O'Neil plus the original artwork. And I'm like, hey, you remember that little comic book shop in Fitchburg, Massachusetts? And he's like, yeah, I do. He said, now that you say that, I do. And I'm like, your artwork used to be on the drafting board inside the window of the Turtles. And he's like, I remember that. God, that's been a long time ago. And I'm like, it has. And it was so funny because we just sat back and chit-chatted about where we grew up and how we grew up. And I'm like, will you sign this? And he's like, sure. And he charged me, right? Well, at the end of the show, I go back to say, at Sunday, and I'm like, hey, Kevin, it was nice meeting you. It was great talking to you. His guys go, you're that guy that had that April O'Neil, right? And I'm like, yeah, I did. He goes, who drew that pencil? I said, I did. And he's like, and that print? I said, I did the print. They're like, do you have any more? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, can you go get 4? We want to buy them. I'm like, what? What? So I go back to the table and I told my wife, I said, I need 4 April O'Neil prints. And I go back and I'm signing these artwork at Kevin's table. And I'm like, never in a million years would I thought I'd been doing this, right? And he looks over and he's like, dude, it's great work. Well, fast forward ahead, I go to another show and he's there. I'm standing on the side of the table, and because the line's terrible, right? And I was an artist there. The line's terrible, and I'm standing on the side, and his wife comes over and goes, "You're from South Carolina?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I said, "I was just wondering." I said, "If Kevin would sign this for me." I said, "I got to get back to my table." And she goes, "Hold on a second." She goes and takes it to him, and he goes, "I've seen this. That's that guy Lance from South Carolina." And I'm like, "Holy shit, Kevin remembered my name," you know? And they wave to me. They're like, "Hey, Lance." They're all like, "Hey, Lance." And I hear them, and they're like, Kevin goes, we all just waved to a blind guy. And I go, "Kevin, I'm blind, not deaf," right? So they all crack up. And then next thing I know, Kevin's like, "Get back here!" So I'm behind Kevin's table, and he's signing all my stuff, and he's like, "You'll never have to pay for an autograph ever again." And I'm like, "This is cool as hell," you know?
I got to interview Kevin Eastman.
Do what?
I got to interview Kevin Eastman.
He's awesome.
I had about 20 minutes with him, and it was like a San Diego Comic-Con thing. I just somehow got on his interview list. And then, like 6 months later, his wife reached out to me. I'm like, yeah, let's fucking do it. Because who am I to say no?
Exactly.
And I was a brand new interviewer, and it was good. It was good. It's interesting. It's wild. So I get it completely. You never know who's going to come across your desk. And again, there's been plenty of people who have been across my desk. They're like, yeah, I'll do an interview, no problem.
Do you remember Marta Kristen, Judy Robinson from Lost in Space?
I don't.
The original?
I'm not that old. I'm 31.
Okay. Well, you need to look up the original Lost in Space with Judy Robinson, Marta Kristen. She sat beside me at a show, and then it was Mark Goddard with Rest of His Soul, which was Don Robinson from Lost in Space. And I'm like, I used to watch you right here on a little black and white TV. And I said, I had the biggest crush on you. She said, most men don't tell me that. They're too afraid to. They took me out to eat. They took me under their wing all weekend long. And I was just like, never in a million years would I thought I'd been friends with Mark and Marta, from Lost in Space. Marta still sends me text messages. She's like, how you doing, Lance? And I'm like, never in a million years would I thought this would ever happen. So I've been blessed to meet some amazing people.
No, that's crazy. I mean, nothing like that ever happened. So to me, but I'm okay with that. I sleep fine. It's all right. It's all right. But I do want to digress, and I do want to back out of this. So I am curious. Where do you think comics is going? Because that's what I want to know from your perspective.
I don't deal enough with the comics industry, but to me, it seems like it's going all digital. And if a business can pay an AI computer to do something and no longer have to pay the artist, I think that's what's going to happen. I think there still will be some artists out there that, they keep. But to me, I'm seeing too much of the photoshopped artwork that, like, I can tell it's photoshopped. Somebody just put out something today, and I screenshotted to show my buddy because he's kind of like a protege. I taught him to redraw pinups, and he's 67 years old, I think, and I helped him get back to drawing because I brought him back to basics. But I show him stuff all the time, and I'm like, look at this. This is photoshopped. And like Zenescope, I pulled Zenescope out the other day because they had a Van Helsing that, had a woman's face on it, but the body was cartoons, and her head was way too big for her body. And I'm like, if you're going to Photoshop it, at least do it right. But I think, if somebody's just sitting back in their computer and they're like, oh, I could just do this and sell covers, I ain't got to pay an artist anymore. And that scares me.
Let's actually talk about this because I have run comic covers through AI. And this is because people say fuck AI. And this is my response to that. And it's a controversial position where I'm like, okay, we can all agree or disagree if AI is good or bad. Right. The problem I have is that when I run a cover that was drawn by a person and an AI detector says it's 95% likely that it was done by AI, but it was drawn by a person who has original sketches of it, of concept art, and they have a video showing how they've done it, and the tool tells me it's AI, that's where I start having problems. And it gets complicated because I've run covers through and it's 56 human, 46% AI. That's not a certainty by any position. And I'm like, great, fuck AI art. I'm cool with that. But what happens when we get a cover that says 50-50? with an AI detector. What happens when we get a cover that has 95% done by AI, but there's actual evidence that it was done by a human? And what happens when we get a cover that says 96% done by a human, but it's crystal clear that's an AI cover?
Right.
Because that's also been in these AI detectors. And that's my biggest issue with fuck AI is, okay, in concept, it's great, but how do I know that? And I'm going to use one of your covers, so hopefully you'll forgive me. How do I know that this wasn't done by AI? I don't think you do AI. And from our conversations and even your concepts, I don't think you're an AI artist, but I don't know for certain. And this is my issue. I mean, I'll throw another cover up there where this right here, I have all 15 in this olive oil. How do I know that's not AI?
Exactly.
It's very tricky. Now, I will say this cover I ran through an AI detector. They came back 96% that it's drawn by a human.
Yeah.
So there's a 4% chance that it's done by AI. But that's 4%. I'm not saying, I mean, I feel comfortable that it's not AI. And it makes me feel good. I haven't run this one through an AI detector, which is the Burissa Mount Olympus book, but I don't know. But if something is 4%, even still, that's still a concern. That means that there is a small position that could be AI. But then there's things that are 56-46%. So 56% drawn by a human, 46% drawn by or created by AI. That's terrifying. That is terrifying. So that's my problem right now with comics and covers and art is when I run something through an AI detector and it's 60-40, that's not reassuring.
Yeah. And that's where you would go all the way back to, can you show me your pencils? You know what I mean? And most people nowadays won't. And that's sad.
So there's this beautiful Lilo and Stitch cover done by Disney. It is drawn in a cartoonish Disney methodology, right?
Right.
It is drawn where it is drawn in a chibi, kind of hands are a little wonky. Beautiful cover, but it's supposed to be drawn that way, right? It's Lilo and Stitch 2004, sweet, adorable cover. There are concept sketches of this cover on this person's Instagram. This cover is not AI in any stretch. Came back 95% AI.
Wow.
So through one of the AI detectors said it was 95%, the other said it was 80.
Wow.
So I'm looking at this and I'm like, wait a second, like this is not okay. Bad AI. And I put up on my Facebook wall, I said, let's play my favorite game, AI or not. Because and this is the problem with the position of fuck AI, is that great. Let's say we all agree AI is bad. How do we determine something is AI or not?
Wow.
And that's
scary.
Right? I mean, this is my issue about art now, because that redefines everything that I know as a creator.
I mean, what did they do? Do everything, the line art, and then say, here you go, color this in Disney color format? You know what I mean? I don't know how AI works. So
the concept of this Lilo and Stitch cover is that, I mean, the person put up, the kind of rough sketch of it, the flatted sketch of it, and then the whole product. So I would say there's provenance to say that this is not AI.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it was AI and they were smart enough to give themselves cover to basically challenge the notion. So
this is where I'm worried about, is that somebody draws something AI and then they reverse engineer it back to pencils. That's what I'm worried about. Because now they got their pencils and they could even ink it backwards. And it's like, yeah, I got my inks and pencils. Look, right here. I drew that. Well, you just reverse engineered that, So that's something that most people don't even think about. And I'm like, imagine that.
I
You know?
mean, you could reverse engineer. You could trace it. You could
Yeah.
do whatever you want. You probably can give an AI prompt something, and then you could print it out, and then you can figure out how to do it from there. And you could say, "Look, I got a digital zip in black and white, and with some pencil marks on there." Or you could, I mean, there's a million things that could be done. But my point is that that's what concerns me is that when I'm using tools to determine something is AI or not, and then all of a sudden something that's not AI comes back as AI, and something that's AI comes back as a human, we
Right.
have a real issue.
Yeah. That's scary.
I mean, I think it's insane, but I digress. I digress. I mean, again, I'm gonna sell books either way. Sean put it really well in that clip. How you found me that he's gonna sell whatever he wants to sell. That's gonna sell,
Yep.
and
It's,
I'm the same way.
it's
Where
about making money. Well,
that's exactly what this is. Where again, I used to sell Pop Funkos on my eBay store. I don't sell those anymore because that's a tougher market to be in.
yeah.
And again, I sell a lot of cards. But let's say comics stopped working, and let's say little widgets did. I'd probably be in that space.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
I digress. But I was just curious what you think
Yeah.
because I come at it from a very different angle than everybody else
Yeah.
does.
Well,
So
that's how I came at it. I came at it as it could get re-engineered backwards. I mean, that's like having a car motor and you're taking it apart to see how it goes together. And basically, you're redoing it backwards. You know. You know.
I
How do you think we've? And I can see somebody doing it because I've been at shows where the kids, they're showing these kids on how to do everything on an iPad. And that scares me too. It's like there's no connection anymore. There's no feel of the paper. There's no feel of the sound of the lead going across the paper. There's none of that anymore. It's just how fast can I get this done and get paid? You know, and that's just like people looking at their phones at shows. I can't see how you can sit there and say you're an artist if you have to look at a picture to draw that picture if you don't have it in your head. I sit down at my kitchen table every morning and I grab a backer board and I draw my stuff and I'm like, I don't like it, I erase it. Now if I wanted to know Wilma's clothes, then I'll look at a picture. But you know everything else is structured from the
it,
circle to the elbow to the wrist. Everything's drawn out.
it's interesting. So as an interviewer, right? I don't look at anybody else's interview, and I don't really listen. So I don't know how many interviews you've done before this, but I have not heard an interview that you've done, and 95% of the time, I don't listen to somebody else's interview that they've done because I'm like, great, I'm going to structure this in the way I want to structure it, and I'm going to do my homework and I do my research. Maybe I'll read 10 questions with somebody, right? Something like that, but just to get an idea or a sense. But it's very rare that I'll listen to somebody else's interview because I
Right.
don't, I conceptually think about what I want to ask and I actually critically think about what I want to do.
Well,
Where
I understand that. That's how it should be. You know, you
because
get you
yeah, I'm saying
good
no, you
because
go, you go.
no, that's just like we were at a drinking trough, right? And all I see is this: everybody's table. They all got their phones. They're all freaking drawing, and I'm like, give me some paper, give me a pencil, and I'm like, here you go. No picture, no painting, no phone, no nothing. Here you go. Here you go. And I mean, I don't understand why you have to use this and to draw on this. You know what I mean?
No,
That's what I can't get
I
that
can
concept.
understand when I'm asking an artist for a commission on something, saying, "Hey, I want Wilma punching Betty in the head, and I want it
Right.
against the Empire State Building, and you need some referencing stuff." I
Right.
understand that, but if we're doing a drink and draw and I'm getting hammered and you're getting hammered, you know, what we should really be doing is that the whole thing is that I should say, Lance, I want you to draw John Cena, and you should say, Andrew, I want you to draw Goku, right? And nobody can look at any pictures for anything, and you're trying to do something. Now, conversely, if you pick something that I don't know, like if I don't know Lost in Space, it would be ridiculous for me for you to say, Andrew, I want you to draw Tina Turner, and I don't know who Tina Turner is. That I would say I'm going to throw a challenge flag down and say I don't know who that is, right? But if I say, if you tell me, Andrew, draw Barbie, right? I should have an idea how to draw Barbie. Now, will it be a good Barbie? Probably not, right?
Right.
Just because I'm not an artist and I'm really, really bad at drawing women at that. I'm much better buying their books and buying sexy bear girl. But the point is that that's what a drink and draw should be, right? It should be a challenge, should be thrown down to each of the people, or there should be a prompt challenge saying, guys, we're drawing Barbie. How do you want to draw Barbie? Or draw a character from Barbie, and everybody can pick the character they want to draw.
Right. Right. Yeah,
but
that's the thing. It's just I don't know. I think things differently, I guess, because I have to do things differently. You know what I mean? And that's probably why I think outside the box when I draw, because I have to draw differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll tell this to you, and I'm curious what you think. So I used to do a lot of panels as a fan for two reasons at cons. A, I got a free ticket to the con, and you add somebody on. So back when I was like 19, you know, one of my parents would join me, and so all of a sudden I get them a free ticket, and I get a free ticket, and that's $120, $150. Or you add, you know, your friends on, and then they're coming, and now they are going to the con with you for free because they're part of your panel, quote unquote.
Right.
And then the other thing is that as somebody who has a physical disability, I can't run around at a convention the same way. So what if I get to a room full of 200 people with an idea? And I've done it. I've done it. So all of a sudden I have a room full of 30 people, and 30 people are there, and I don't have to track them down. And I have them for 45 minutes. And I had a panel at the Javits Center for Anime NYC. I had about 45 people in that room, and I had a panel back to back. And I would say about 60% of the people said, you did a really good job with this panel, that I'm going to stay for the next one, not because I particularly like the topic, but you're a really good presenter.
Right.
And I've had people, you know, you'll be like, dude, like I'm not a fan of Attack on Titan or The Walking Dead, but you're a really good presenter. And I was just curious what you were going to talk about next.
Right. Yeah.
And so now, you know, that's what I had to figure out, is that I drove traffic to a particular point instead of running around a con like a chicken with its head cut off. Which is KFC, guys. That's KFC. I mean,
not
I'm
Chick-fil-A.
just saying, that's what they do, supposedly.
Yeah.
It's a little messed up. But I digress right there. So I get thinking differently completely. I have to.
But yeah, I had a panel, and it was a smaller show, and I probably had 40 people in the panel, and everybody knew me, and there was some people in it that didn't. And I said, you know, my first question is I know everybody knows me here. You know, everybody knows I draw. Does anybody want to know me? And I had somebody sitting beside me, and they're like, almost everybody raised their hand. So I really didn't talk about drawing or art or anything. I just talked about me and what I've done in my life and the accomplishments and the falls and the, you know, I was homeless, you know, and I just talked about myself. And I had people come up to me at the end of the show, and they like, we laughed our ass off. We cried. You know, you brought us through an emotional roller coaster with this whole story. And they're like, we didn't want the 45 minutes to end. And I'm like, you guys are so sweet, you know.
Oh man!
But it was just like to have the people there after, you know, it's over. You know, some next people's trying to come in, you know, and they're like, I'm like, I always say, we got to go. And they're all back. And the next people are like, dude, are you guys getting out of here? But
The best thing that I've ever done at a con. It was an awesome con, and my favorite panel to do as a white heterosexual male is a gay panel. So hear me out on this one. Hear me out on this one. It sounds weird, and I understand it. Is that I was fortunate that I got to interview Howard Cruz, who led the gay comics movement before he passed away, and I really enjoyed Stuck Rubber Baby and a few other things that he did in Wendell. I really enjoyed, and I thought it was really well written. And so I'm doing this panel. I have first-hand knowledge that Howard Cruz did not disclose to anybody else about being a gay man in Alabama with a daughter. So talk about a complicated individual, right? During the civil rights movements. And obviously he loves his daughter. A lot of stuff was interested in, and I wish I got to re-interview him because I was a brand new, underexperienced interviewer. That no right should I have been interviewing him. But again, we all start somewhere, and sometimes people just wind up being thrown into the middle of the ocean, not knowing what the hell they're doing. So I'm at Awesome Con. I'm walking on crutches. I accidentally fell. I came into the back end of the last panel. I fell, and a few people noticed who stayed. And then one of the guys who was promoting it, or like one of the con people, was there. He's like, "Oh, dude, you okay?" I'm like, "I'm fine. I'm here on the next panel. I'm just a little bit early. It didn't hurt as much." He's like, "Yo, dude, you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm fine." And not angry or anything. Just saying, so let me just sit down for a few minutes, and then I'll get up there. So I'm talking, and all I like to do is chit chat because you got 10 minutes before your panel starts. I'm saying, "Oh man, how's everybody con going?" All that stuff. And then the audience is all stiff. I say, "This place is fucking huge, and I'm on crutches, and I can barely make it." The entire room went from like a fucking 90 uptight level down to a 3. Like everybody's mind just broke because I revealed something very personal. I said, "I'm on crutches, and this place is fucking huge, and I can barely and I'm exhausted." And everybody in the room, and like there was like 7-year-olds in the room, and their parents were like, "Oh my god, this kid just said the obvious," and we all felt comfortable, and it was amazing because it's the idea that you connect with somebody on that level that just surpasses every component. That everybody's like, "Wait a second, he just made something. He made an obvious statement, addressed a massive elephant, and I feel comfortable about whatever sexuality I am in this realm, whether I'm gay, bi, straight, non-binary." And it was a mixed group, and I had like 80 people in there, and like a bunch of them were like, "Yo, that was a good panel, man. That was good." Like, and like a bunch of people were like, okay, we're now calm, and now somebody said something, so I get it completely, but I digress again. But yeah, so I get the idea of asking. You want to know about me, and so I get it. But
it was funny because I was at one, and it was like I didn't have anybody sitting beside me, and they're like, "Okay, how many of you?" And I'd ask a question. I'm like, "Raise your hand." I'm like, "How many of you raise your hand? How many of you raise your hand?" I'm like, "I don't know how many of you raise your hand because I'm blind and I didn't see any of that." And they were like, "What?"
I can make so many jokes right now. This is my favorite joke of all time. I can't see this card. Apparently, a bunch of people that I shipped to also can't see the card either.
Can't see
and
it.
Leaf Metal shipped it to me, and I'm like, "I feel it," and I'm like, "I can't see it." They're like, "We know you can't see it," and I'm like, "I think you got shipped it to me," and they're like, "We can't see it," and I'm like, "I can't see it. So how am I supposed to sell it?" And it's like it's a terrible, terrible thing that none of us can see it. We'll say it's invisible. Supposedly there's a person in there, and then I ran through an AI detector, and it said it's a card, but it's invisible. We don't know if it's drawn by a human or an AI because it's invisible, and we can't tell, but we can tell it's a card. It's terrible.
So you collect cards too?
Oh, I'm a big card collector. I'm a terrible card collector, and I hunt down rare cards, and I have a very, very, very nice collection. I'm really into baseball cards.
Okay.
I'm really into Tops now stuff, so I have a lot of 10 of 10 cards. So like
I'll
7
have
out of
to show you some of the ones. I'll send you a message. I got some that are like, they're not really baseball card size. They're like even bigger than a baseball card. And they're all in black and white. They're all printed probably in the 40s.
That's cool. I'm
Yeah.
a huge baseball Tops Now guy, and so
Yeah.
Tops Now does parallels, and so I'm a big New York Mets fan, and
Yeah.
I love Julio Rodriguez. So like I have like some 10 of 10 of his cards. I have some rare Kodai Senga. So the way Tops Now does it is that there's a bunch of orders, right? They come in and then they do parallels in addition to your base cards. So I have like 49s of Kodai Senga, who's a pitcher on the Mets. And then
Yeah.
for his 200th strikeout as a rookie, I got a 25. I got like number like 23 out of 25 of that. So that's like a $50 card. And then I have
Wow.
Francisco Lindor, who's a Mets shortstop right now, and he's great. And he'll retire as a Met. I have his 200th home run as a shortstop.
Wow.
So he's, I think, number 11 on the list. He might be number 10 on the list, actually, now that I think about it. So that is basically that's 7 out of 10. I pulled that
Right.
card. Oh my God. That's like a 90 to $110 card on a bunch of cards that I bought for $50 plus the other 10. So
Right.
I have some rare stuff. I have like Pete
It's
Alonso's.
awesome.
I have a Pete Alonso 5 out of 5. I have a Brett Beatty card. And I'm really into this space. And I've just pulled some rare stuff. And I'm hoping, and I might be buying a Caitlin Clark card tomorrow that might be expensive. Even though I shouldn't because I'm technically in debt.
Hey,
Technically, let me put it this way, everybody. I'm not losing my house and I'm not losing my mortgage, but definitely I should not be spending as much money as I should be spending. And Sean probably has a really good idea how much money I've been spending lately.
well, I just say I hope you buy one of my books for them.
Eventually, we might be doing business. I'm not opposed to it. I am figuring out whatnot. I am figuring out merch. And all I know is that I probably need a month off from expenditure.
Yeah.
Just because I got to get my shit in checked.
Yeah.
And then I just need to get my shit organized. That's the other thing too, is that sometimes it's not just money. It's the idea that when you have 500 books that are unaccounted for, you got to
Right.
get your merchandise in check.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I mean, I legitimately have 150 blank sketchbooks with nothing on them.
Yeah.
So again, I just need to organize my systems. But
Yeah.
I digress. But I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself. So where can people find you, bother you, hit you up, disturb you, track you from work, book you for cover, all that fun stuff?
Stalk me. I'm on Facebook on Low Vision Studios. My personal page is Lance Footer. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Whatnot for Low Vision Studios or Lance Footer. I'll be at SC Comic Con, not this coming weekend, the weekend after. I think the 6th and the 7th. I'll be at Heroes Con in Charlotte in June, Father's Day weekend. And that's about it, I think, for shows. Maybe MegaCon next year. If I can get a table. But, I'm social media, YouTube. You can find me on YouTube. I got videos on YouTube, but it's basically racing, If you want to watch a good, inspiring video on YouTube, watch I think it says my final national championship. So that was pretty cool. The last one we won together was pretty amazing because we came back from almost like a 3 or 4 second deficit and won. So, and the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon? You've heard of that?
Yeah,
You've heard of that?
yeah.
Okay, well, Kevin Bacon was in a movie with Nelson Fails. And Nelson was the first black man to win a gold medal in the Olympics for cycling. Okay. Nelson, after my last national championship, came across the track shook my hand, gave me a hug, and said that's the best race he's ever seen in his entire life. And he's actually the person that put my national championship jersey on me and my medal. And so he was in the movie with Kevin Bacon. So once you know me, you're even closer to that 7-degree separation of Kevin Bacon, because it's Nelson, me, and then whoever's friends with me. So, so you're even closer now that we contacted.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Everybody is 7 degrees away from Kevin Bacon, apparently.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Now you're what 3. But no worries, brother. I'll let you go. I gotta go to bed. I get up at like 4:30 in the morning. So
I get up
unfortunately,
I get up at 6:30, and I feel you, but I'm gonna just keep saying that you gotta support indie. You gotta support what you like. That means following people on social media, buying their books, buying whatever they're selling. If they're doing covers, buying those covers. Engaging with them on social media is very important. Sharing out what they do, extremely important.
Sharing, yes,
goes a long way. And then, as far as I'm concerned, with everything that I'm doing, I am Pop Anime Comics on Twitter/X, Pop Anime Comics on Instagram, Pop Anime Comics on Facebook, Pop Anime Comics on YouTube. Please subscribe. I promise you that you may or may not get smarter by watching me, but you will be entertained. I can assure you that. 1,400 plus videos, probably 700 to 800 interviews at this point, or close to it. There's a lot of content, and I have everything for everybody on my YouTube channel, and I'm constantly adding more. So be on the lookout for that. TikTok is Pop Anime Comics, and then my eBay store is this right here. Looking for comics and collectibles? Come shop with us on eBay on Pop Anime Comics Collectibles, and we carry books like this lovely My Hero Academia Mirko book in holofoil, and I will match anybody who could find a book like this because I have all 15 of them in holofoil. So I will match anybody's price point. Same thing with this book. I have all 15 of these too. Oh, it gets better, everybody. It gets better. I will, furthermore, this lovely Shikari bikini, Miss Meow, I believe number 8, if you dare. That is technically an error book. That there's only 10 of these, even though it says 20. I will match anybody who has one of these, same price, but I have all 10, so I'll match myself, whatever I'm asking. I'm just saying that that's how I run, and I have several other books in that vein. So if you are interested in that stuff, but I also carry a bunch of other stuff from Merc, from Miss Meow, from Zenescope. I do have those silver showcases that just came out. So again, those aren't up there. And I do have books that just dropped today from Merc that just dropped, which are the Vault Leather editions that Shikari did, a Born of Blood #1. Done by my good friend Dolan. So again, there's a lot of stuff out there that I have, and check out my eBay store. Check out what I do on Whatnot, which is usually Fridays or Saturdays. I might be skipping this week because it is March Madness. So to keep in mind, everybody, that I do have a problem. It's called gambling, and I'm very good at it. So that's all I'm going to say. And it is opening day baseball also tomorrow. So that's probably why I'm not doing a Whatnot stream. But Friday night, me and my friend around 10:30 are talking about Die Another Day, which is Pierce Bronson, which should be a lot of fun. So definitely, if you want to have a good time and get hammered with me and my friend while we're watching it, we're going to have a great time. So we talk like 20 minutes wrestling, everybody, and then we're talking about movies until WrestleMania, and then we're going to talk about wrestling again. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, but that's everything that I got. And I'm very personable. You could bother me, hit me up. I do respond. Just don't be a dick, and you'll be fine. I mean, you can be a dick all you want. It's just I'm with you if you are. It doesn't end well. Is where I'm going with. But enough about that. It's a free country. It's a free country. Just remember, everybody, just don't drive a boat into a pillar in the Baltimore Harbor, and you should be fine. Too soon. Hey,
too soon. Hey, wait. Could have been a blind guy driving.
You know what is? I wouldn't put it past them. I wouldn't put it past them. I'm just saying that you never know. Again, I don't judge here. I don't judge. I believe that you could have a blind ship captain. Maybe
There you
you don't.
go.
I do.
Maybe I was driving.
I mean, look, I'm rooting for a blind NASCAR driver too.
There you go.
I'm just saying that I think that we should be progressive here. I mean,
Too
look,
funny.
look. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I'm all for people doing all sorts of stuff in life, and I don't let any obstacle or inconvenience or disability stop anybody accomplishing what they believe in. So that's all I'm going to say on that point. So again, I don't count anything out with this bridge. I'm waiting for the report, and everything's on the table. I'm from everything from the aliens did it to power outage. Or maybe somebody just wanted to smoke in the engine room. I mean, I'm just saying, all those are fair. You heard it here, but I digress. I will give you the final word.
Just share. Biggest thing for any artist is just share their work. If you like it, share it. If you like my work, follow me. Contact me if you're looking for something specific. But sharing's caring. And I appreciate this interview, and I appreciate your time, Andrew. And it's just be kind to others. This is a big business. There's plenty of money for everybody. Just be kind. Don't treat people like dirt. That's basically what I think. Treat everybody like you want to be treated yourself. So, but thank y'all. And like I said, Low Vision Studios, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I got whatnot, but I think I had one sale. So,
doing better than me. You're doing better than me. So,
brother.
I don't think I could have said that any better myself, everybody. And that is a wrap.